Thank you, Toastmaster Anushka, for that lovely introduction. I got reminded of a large part of my life through your words. And also, a great deal of thanks to Division K for arranging these weekly waffles and for inviting me to conduct a workshop on club evaluation. Well, if feedback is supposed to be the breakfast of champions, I think it is the club evaluators who prepared that breakfast, that wholesome cereal in session after session and for speech after speech. In fact, it's a known fact that if a club has got good evaluators, they produce great speakers. And I really recommend to all clubs to focus on developing good evaluators, not for evaluation contests, but for producing champion speakers as well, right? Now, before I start, I'd just like to have a handle on the mix of participants that we have here today in terms of their experience in evaluation. So what I'd request is you have that reaction button with a thumbs up. So for all those people who have never done an evaluation, a club evaluation till now, could I see a thumbs up? Don't be shy. All right, we have a few. And are there people who have done club evaluation but not participated in contests, but just done club evaluations? Okay, some there as well. And what about people who have taken part in evaluation contests? Right. So we have a fair mix of people here. I hope that whatever I'm going to communicate over the next 45 minutes will have something for everybody, whether you're a newbie or an intermediate evaluator or an expert evaluator. Please pick up whatever is useful to you. And in case you want to know anything deeper, I'm always at your service in the days to come. Now, there might be questions that may come to your mind in the course of the workshop. You can post it in the chat box. I will take a look from time to time. And if I can answer it in the course of the presentation, I will do so. But otherwise, I will answer them once the session is over in order not to disturb the flow too much. I hope that's all right. And timer, I would request that if I can see the green at around 35 minutes, the yellow at 40 and the red at 45. Okay. So are we set to go? Let's put on a PowerPoint as we begin. I hope the screen is visible. Club evaluations, heart and soul. That is the topic for today. Now, why heart and soul? Now, in my opinion, an evaluation has to have both. You have to go to the heart of the matter. And in fact, you have to have the heart of an analyst in order to do a good job for evaluation. And you have to have a soul. As an evaluator, we are not a teacher. Neither are we a critic, nor are we the boss out here. We should look upon the speaker as our friend who needs an advice and motivation. So, the soul of a friend, the heart of an analyst, and the soul of a friend, that is what a club evaluator, and any evaluator for that matter, should be. There's another reason why I call it heart and soul, because you are going to see a bit of my heart and soul in the course of this presentation, because I will share with you my own path of learning, what I have learned, what has worked for me. And if some of that works for you as well, I will consider it time well spent sharing all this knowledge with you. To start with, I have a statement to make. In my opinion, club evaluation is a bigger job than a contest evaluation. Although we jump up and down so much about contests, club evaluation is a heavier role to play. How is it? If you consider a contest evaluation, there is a speech and there is an evaluation of that speech. That's it. Now, for a club evaluator, he has bigger roles to play. He has got something called a statement of criteria that he has to play. And while evaluating the speech, not only does he evaluate the speech, he evaluates the project as well against the criteria which has been described. Now, what is all this criteria about, which is particular about in the club? The pathways that all the speakers go through define projects for the speaker. So each speech is trying to enhance a particular skill or a capability, right? So that particular focus is reflected in the criteria that is set for that particular project. It is unlike, so of course, in a contest where the speech is being evaluated on the whole. So there is a statement of criteria by the evaluator, there is a speech given by the speaker, and finally a feedback given by the evaluator on both the criteria as well as the speech as a whole. Now, before I go further, let me just share with you my view of Pathways projects, because there is actually a bifurcation of two categories, and both these categories need slightly different treatment in evaluation, right from the criteria to the actual evaluation speech itself. Now, what is that? If you look at Pathways projects, which the speakers take up, there are some projects which work at enhancing communication skills. And there is another lot of projects which work at enhancing leadership skills, or rather non-communication skills, apart from communication, other skills as well. Now, if it is a communication skill project, for example, understanding vocal variety, know your sense of humor, effective body language, things basically which appear at the first two levels of any path. There, the speech and the project are the same. They're congruent. Basically, the project is about developing certain speaking skills. On the other hand, if it's a leadership project, there is a project given to the member, and he is doing the project, and then he's reporting on his project experience, which is slightly different from developing a speaking skill itself, right? For example, if you have a managed project successfully, or if you are learning to create a podcast, or you have taken like a high performance leadership project, the project is done and there are speeches given on the project, either reporting the experience or reporting the plan before the project starts, or both. So in this particular case, the evaluation process is slightly different than compared to a pure speech skill development project. Now, as I go along, I will give examples of both so that the difference, there is a slight difference, not a big difference, is apparent to the future evaluators. Now, going back to our process. Now, when we state criteria, for whom do we state this criteria? The speaker knows the criteria very well. He's going through the project. The evaluator knows the criteria because he's been handed the evaluation form which states the criteria. The criteria are basically for the audience. They may be Toastmasters of the club, or they may even be guests who are non-Toastmasters who have just come to listen to the speeches. So unless the criteria are described to the people who are present there, they will really not know what is the focus area of the speaker, what is it that he has done, and what is it that one should look for when even the audience is listening to the speech. That is why the statement of criteria is done. Now, how is this done? Usually, there is an evaluation resource or an evaluation form, which the speaker shares with the evaluator, which shows something like this. I have taken an example of a communication skill project, body language, where the speaker is supposed to enhance his non-verbal communication. Now, if you are a evaluator who has just started on his path, the simplest way is to just read out the purpose statement, which is given. Very simple. The TMI has very specifically written what is the purpose of this project. However, if you are a slightly advanced evaluator, I'd suggest that you add a little value here in two ways. One, the language, I feel, can be simplified a bit. Now, in all fairness, TMI is a very, very efficient organization and very particular about what they write. But between you and I, this looks more like a business document than a speech document. For example, if the evaluator gets up and says, the purpose of this project is for the member to deliver a speech with awareness of intentional and unintentional body language, as well as to learn, practice, refine how he or she uses nonverbal communication when delivering a speech. So help me God. What would a guest who is visiting make out of it? He'll perhaps catch a word here and there. So I feel it is fair on the evaluator's part to paraphrase it slightly and make it a little simpler so that the essence is captured while the intelligence of what is being said remains, right? Second thing, the evaluator should not go only by this document if you're a slightly advanced evaluator. For example, this is a screenshot from the speaker's project. Now, there's an evaluation resource which has been printed out and sent, which is this paper. And if the evaluator is able to go through the project of the speaker himself, he will get to a lot of other things which Toastmaster has recommended that the speaker learns from this project. This print my project, just give me a second, let me switch on the annotation. Where is that? Okay, sorry. For me, annotation is not on for some reason. No problem. When you see this print my project and you ask the speaker to print it out and give it to you, you'll get some more clues as to what are the competencies that the speaker is supposed to develop through this project, and you can add it to the evaluation criteria. Let me give you an example. If we go back to the project of body language, this is the way perhaps we can say it. The speaker has undertaken a path of dynamic leadership and is currently at level 5, level 3. It's important to say this. In his current project, he is expected to become aware of intentional and unintentional body language. His speech should focus on nonverbal communication. So it's clear that this project is about the speech. And the thing in green I have lifted from the project of the speaker, and it is a relevant thing. We should also expect that the selection of the subject and content will help to showcase this particular skill. Now, isn't that also important? The speech can be in any style, note 5 to 7 minutes, it should be a great speech. So that is a slightly more informal and more detailed evaluation criteria. What you should not mention definitely are, as an evaluator, the speaker's name, title of speech, achievements of speaker. These are all the TMOD's job, not the evaluator's job to include in the speech criteria. Similarly, if it is a high performance leadership project, we should be able to differentiate that the project is something and the speech is something else. That the project is supposed to highlight developing a project plan, etc., etc. And the speech is one where he's sharing his initial plans. Now, once again, I have lifted out a little bit from the project. It says that he should highlight the competencies that were developed and he should share the problems, which you also noticed. Now, this gives a more comprehensive evaluation criteria to the speaker. And if he gets feedback on the green things as well, he's benefited, right? Similarly, as I said earlier, no speaker's name, title of speech, or achievements. So when we talk about both these types of projects, whether it's a communication project or a leadership project, we can simplify the language a little. And if we go through the project of the speaker, we can add a few evaluation points which will help the speaker. Now that is where an evaluator can grow in the criteria stage itself. Now let's come to the speech. Now the speaker has been called to the stage and is being introduced by the Toastmaster of the day. Now let me take a break here and tell you a little story. Now there was a friend of mine who was asked to give the vote of thanks in some sort of function where a local singer was going to sing a couple of songs, but he was stuck somewhere. We're getting very late. And by the time he reached, after an hour after the program is supposed to have started, he found everybody sitting there glumly on stage and the mic standing empty. So he rushed there and went to the mic and gave his appreciation of the songs, which he knew what the songs were going to be, and thanked everybody and sat down, and he found that everybody was glaring at him. So the organizer came and whispered to him, "Sir, you're giving the feedback even before he sang the songs." So friends, it is important to listen to the speech. Listening is a very important skill for an evaluator as much as speaking. Now, when it is our turn to evaluate the speech, the job of an evaluator starts as soon as the speaker has taken the stage. Means he has to start noticing, right? Now, when I started my evaluation journey, I found that I was faced with 4 distinct challenges. I will share those challenges with you because I'm sure You as evaluators, maybe you've just started or you're intermediate or you're doing contests, you would have faced some of these challenges here or there. Now, what are they? The evaluator's challenge. First, I say the challenge is to note all that is relevant while the speech is going on. How do we do that? Second, out of that, choose only what is important. What is important and how do we choose? Third, deliver your observations in a positive and acceptable manner. And fourth, do it in 3.25 minutes. 4 challenges, my friends. And these are the 4 challenges we are going to tackle in the coming 15-20 minutes. Note all that is relevant. Choose only what is important. Deliver in a positive and acceptable manner in 3.25 minutes. And I hope by the time we have gone through this, you would have solved these 4 issues and be in a position to deliver an effective evaluation which is of value to your speaker. So let's start. Note all that is relevant. So what is the problem here? I felt 3 problems. Number 1, when the speaker is speaking, I get so engrossed in his speech that I forget to take notes and my sheet remains empty. Number 2, I find that I'm very bad at multitasking. When I'm writing, I cannot listen. Maybe it's because I'm a man, but I'm sure many of the lady Toastmasters also will face the problem to some extent. And third, at the end of hearing the speech, I could never be sure whether I've considered all the aspects of speech craft, let us say, or delivery craft, and have I missed any important point to note? So how do I note all that is relevant? Here, I found there is no way to do this effectively unless we use a checklist. And let me share the checklist with you, which I use. Now, it may be looking a little small, so I will expand it a bit for you. Yeah, maybe it's a little better now. This is a list. It's not comprehensive, but it captures all the major aspects of speaking. Any speech broadly is evaluated on 3 aspects: structure of speech, contents in the speech, and the delivery of the speech. Now, sitting on overall as an umbrella, there is, one second, I'm still hoping I can do some annotation. No, not possible. Yeah, so overall, there is some comment also that we have to keep, whether it was an inspiration, informative, entertaining, what was the theme, was the speaker and the title. But inside this structure, content, and delivery, there are so many aspects, which if the checklist is there, it's easier to note down. I'll just go through them very briefly because each of them is a subject by itself. So if you're talking about structure of speech, that basically covers the opening, the closing, the message, how the movement was from topic to topic, how was the logical flow, which you probably will be able to make out once the speech is over. How was the emotional charge in the speech development. In the content of the speech, all these things play a role. Language, the drama, stories were there, audience interaction, examples, quotations, humor, dialogue, data, props, visual aids. Now, one speech may not have all of this, nor is it expected to. When we are evaluating the speech, it may be so that that type of speech does not demand data. So just because the data is there as a row doesn't mean we should write something negative there. This is just a checklist that it is considered, and then we are saying, okay, required, not required, done well, not done well. Similarly for delivery, gesture, stage movements, facial expression, etc. Now, these points which are mentioned are for evaluating a normal speech. However, in a club evaluation, it is a project, and the project will have a little stress on something in particular. So usually I keep a little space at the bottom for noting that separately. Let me show you a couple of examples which may make it more clear. Now, the challenge may still remain that in this sheet, when the speaker is speaking, how do I make so much notes? We are back to the same old problem. Actually, I don't make so much notes. Let me show you one sample. Now this, I'll leave it small only, is a speech, say, I myself had given. On, say, theme was painting. It was an entertaining speech. And I had just, you can see I had kept on ticking where the speaker has demonstrated that particular aspect. And I put a double tick where he has done it very well, worth mentioning. And I've put a few words here and there where I want to keep a little further note. Like if there was a quotation, I may note down the words. If there was some humorous joke, I may write a small word reference so that I can remember later what it was about. Not too much, not that that will make me lose attention on the speech. Yeah. So like that, I've ticked a lot, written some, and this is my reminder speech as to what is it that I heard. Now, since this is a body language, that is our communication type of example, as you can see in the project part, I have not written much, but I've just dragged down that section on gesture, stage movement, facial expression to project, meaning that portion of the speaking skill is actually the project. So whatever comments I've made up there holds for the project comment. Additionally, I put a comment saying more physical theme, meaning the theme that had been chosen was perhaps not appropriate for a body language speech. So this is how this checklist cum noting sheet can be used. You can make your own. Now in a club evaluation, you can carry this prepared, but in a contest, you cannot. In a contest, you may have to remember and write it down before the guy starts speaking. Similarly, if it was a leadership skill project, you'll similarly note a lot of ticks, some words, and at the bottom in the project part, you will see that the particular things related to an HPL projects I mentioned. In the plus, I've said plan explained, guidance committee described, executive committee described. However, why the debate as a subject Panna has picked, I have not. She has not explained. Why she chose those executive committee members, she has not explained. What we are learning, she has not elaborated. This I note down for further speaking. Now, I have noted a lot, right? A lot of ticks here, there. How to choose out of this only the ones which I want to talk about, because 3 minutes is limited time. Neither can the person absorb a lot. Okay. You will see here I have written some priorities of 1, 2, 3. Now I will discuss how is it that this prioritization can be done. There are 3 levels at which one can do this. First, if you are rather new at evaluation, you can pick the 3 most impressive from both your liked and for your improvement sections. Pick the 3 which impressed you the most, which you remember most readily, and naturally which you can talk about more. Pick them and speak on them. Second, if you are an intermediate evaluator, many people follow this, that if you remember that the evaluation sheet had 3 sections, structure, content, delivery. They pick one from each. On the like side, one from structure, one from content, one from delivery. On the improvement side, one from structure, content, and delivery, so that the speaker gets a feedback over all aspects of speaking. However, if you're an advanced speaker, you may go a little bit further, and this further is a very fine point. Take 3 from the top. Now I will explain what that is. In my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of judges, a comment on structure carries much, much more value than a comment on content, which carries much, much more value than a comment on delivery. Now, why is that? From the speaker's point of view, if you think, an issue on delivery, and here we are thinking more on recommendation side, an issue on delivery, he would know by the time he completes his speech, he himself is rather aware that this is good, this is not good in delivery. Even if you tell him, it will be a reinforcement. On content, he may not be very, very aware, but if you tell him once, he will realize that yes, this could have been improved. On structure, it is very difficult for a speaker to wrap his head around an improvement in structure, although it may be very relevant. For example, a speaker might find it very difficult to understand how his transitions could have been done better, although it may be very important to the way the audience absorbs his speech. It will be relatively easy for him to understand where humor can be put in. He can look over and think, okay, here it can be put. And if you tell him stage movement could have been better, he will say, haha, I know. Even if you think from contest point of view, umpteen number of evaluators will tell about delivery. Some more will tell about content. Very few will tell about structure. Makes strategically more sense. Take 3 from the top. So when I say 3 from the top, what I mean is, suppose you have very strong 2 points on structure, 2 on content, 2 on delivery. I will pick both points on structure and one on content, and I will ignore delivery. If there's time to give only 3, that would be my priority. And that judgment you can make only when you're a little advanced as an evaluator, right? So either pick the 3 most impressive, or pick 1 each from structure, content, and delivery, or take 3 from the top, starting from structure to content to delivery. Any of these 3 methods can be used for prioritizing what you're going to talk about. Now, we have covered 2 aspects. Note all that is relevant through that sheet. Choose only what is important through this method. Now we are about to deliver. Deliver means we are not yet ready, but we are getting into the position of delivery. There are 2 stages of this delivery. First, whatever you thought that you're going to talk about, you got to arrange like a bouquet in a flower so that it looks nice. Now, I don't know about ladies, but I'm sure many of the men here would have presented a rose or a bouquet to a girl he likes. Is it always accepted? It depends on the way you're delivering it. Second point of this delivery skill is acceptance. How to make the speaker accept what he is saying. We are going to discuss these 2 aspects now. When we talk of arranging what we want to say, this is a very, very famous and typical approach in an evaluation, which says, give a sandwich, meaning give a point of praise, give a section of recommendations, and end with praise again. Start with praise, the speaker is ready to listen. Slip in the recommendations and end with praise again so that the speaker is happy that you gave him this particular feedback. There are some variations of this sandwich which are not okay. Let me tell that also. First, the whitewash sandwich. Only praise, no recommendation, which is absolutely useless to the speaker because the speaker wants to improve, right? Only criticism and recommendations, no praise, which is also not okay because it's a hindrance on acceptability. And also the speaker doesn't get to know what he does well, which you'd like to continue. Third, very thin sandwich. You mentioned perhaps 1 good point, 1 point of recommendation, the speaker would be very dissatisfied. After speaking for 7 minutes, this is all I get. The humongous sandwich that you put 7 points in praise, 5 points in recommendation, the speaker is lost. He cannot bite such a big sandwich. So let's come to which is a simpler sandwich, which I call the contest sandwich because, as I said earlier, the club sandwich is a bigger one. So what is the contest sandwich like? How do we start? We put on top a nice opening and we talk about what I liked. Then we come to what is to be improvement to be done and how it is to be improved. And last, we put a summary and a closing motivating line. So that is the sandwich. I'm calling it the contest sandwich because this is what is typically followed in contests. Now, why are these particular segments important? Now, this is, if you are going to start evaluating, now this is an important point to note. What I like and what is there to be improved. The points that you explain to the speaker establishes your analytical ability to the speaker as well. He is confident then that you understood what he's talking about and how his speech can be improved and what has been done well. The how portion is you're telling him that if you have not done something properly, this is how it should be improved. It's a demonstration. Now, this demonstration is extremely useful for the speaker because if you just tell him that there should have been more humor in the speech, he will say, okay, where? You should be able to tell him that when you were talking about the teachers in your college, why didn't you put some descriptive additions like this teacher was like a humongous grizzly bear, something like that, which make it memorable and humorous. If you tell him that your closing message should have been more powerful, he will say, okay, how? And you have to tell him that the message, instead of saying this, you should have said this, right? That is how the benefit comes to the speaker through the how. And thirdly, the summary is extremely important because ultimately at the end of 3 minutes, the speaker may have forgotten the first minute. And when you summarize these points, what you liked and what is to be improved as bullet points, it remains in the speaker's mind and he carries it forth, maybe notes it down and keeps it. Summary is important. I would like to reinforce that these are important by sharing with you what the judges think important in a contest. It's not part of club evaluation, I know, but for making the contest evaluators a little happier, let me share that with you. What I liked and what is to be improved, the good and the bad of the speech is what goes under an analysis criteria of the judges and carries 40 points. So it's an important thing to convey. The how, which is called recommendation in the judges' palette, how to improve the speech carries 30 points. Just imagine all that effort you put in analyzing 3 points here, 4 points there will be only half the battle unless you tell how exactly it is to be improved. A summary, even the judges think it is important. 15 points in a summary just for telling the bullets all over again, because that is what is going to remain in the speaker's mind. And there's an additional 15 points for technique. This technique is not speaking skill technique. This technique is the technique of offering that bouquet in a way that it is accepted by that girl, right? This technique is about acceptance. We will come to that after we go through preparing the bouquet. Now, if we are talking about the club sandwich, and I love that term, you know, how well sandwich and club evaluation has combined. What I usually do is I insert a section which talks specifically about this project. If it's a body language project, I will specifically say that this project on body language, this is what you did well, then go on to the rest of the speech evaluation as a whole. Or if it's a high performance leadership, I will say, okay, you did this well. In this project, this part you didn't do well, it was adequately serviced. And rest of your speech, this is my comment. So the club evaluation has a little more material than a contest evaluation because, as we saw earlier, the project is an additional factor in a club evaluation. Let me just give a hint as to what can be the content of each of these sections. In a typical opening, usually we can give a, if you want to do a little better job of an opening, you can give a topical opening. Instead of just saying that we just heard a speech from XYZ, you can say, while it's been raining outside, it's been raining, you know, similes and metaphors in here. Good evening, Toastmasters, and in particular, speaker XYZ, who gave us an excellent, entertaining speech on painting. So in 2 sentences, you cover a topical, the greeting, the type of speech, and the theme of the speech. This needs a little practice, but it's a very efficient way to introduce the speech. Second, when you're talking about the project, you have to say, let's first deal with the project. What I liked is this, because you did this. What could have been done better are these aspects. And it is imperative you give an overall comment. You can say that it was well met, it was excellently accomplished, or it was adequately met, it was somewhat met. You know, all these variations of adjectives are there. You have to give one of them. So the speaker knows, the mentor knows, the VPE knows, was this project satisfactory or not, as per the evaluator. Then you go on to the rest of the speech and say, okay, about the rest of the speech, what I liked otherwise is 2 to 3 points. I say 2 to 3 because depending on the time, how much time you have spent on the project, you may be able to fit in only 2 or you may fit in 3. More than that is really not necessary because especially in a club evaluation, there is always the G to back you up with a couple of more points. Then you come to the improvement and how to improve. You mentioned what could be better, give an example of what you're talking about. That is, if you say that your stage movement could be better, then you have to say, like you were mostly on the left side of the stage. And then you have to demonstrate. Now, if the first story could have been on the left, second in the middle, third in the right, would have been a great job. Here too, 2 to 3 points, but I definitely suggest you try to fit in 3 because here is where the speaker really gains value. And the summary is nothing but a series of bullet points of likes and improvements. And you end with a phrase or a clause or a sentence, which is a motivating line. We will see some examples of how to do that. So this is what is the club sandwich. And opening, the project criteria met or not, otherwise what I liked in the speech, and otherwise what else is there to improve, how to improve, give a bullet summary, close with a motivating line. Now, this is okay on a computer sheet, computer screen. The same thing actually is required on paper. I personally have found, and it's a good practice, that once you have prepared the checklist while you are listening to the speech, and maybe 5 minutes after that, you're also making some points, it is too jumbled and too messy to refer to and speak when you're actually speaking. So what I usually do, I take 2-3 minutes to transfer that to another paper, which specifically lays down how I'm going to speak. I write down the opening there. I write down the project, the parameters, what I liked, improved. Otherwise, what I liked in the speech, how to improve, closing, everything is now written. Let me show you an example. I'm going back to the same body language speech, right? What I've written here. Now, this was a speech I gave where actually I was painting and I was learning to paint, and it was a bit of a humorous speech on my experience. And I'm starting saying, for example, one thinks of serenity with paintings, but body language? Only Toastmaster Rajat could think of giving a speech, giving an entertaining speech on the theme of painting on such a subject, right? That could be an opening. Now, as far as the project is considered, I think you did. You had adequate gestures to support all your movements. What you did with the brush and the easel was well done. Your stage was covered well. You had 3 stories and you distinctly used 3 areas of the stage. In fact, you moved a virtual easel across. Your stance was very confident everywhere. What maybe could have been better is that you could have shown a little more expression, especially when you're fed up with the teacher, your face didn't show it. It should show. And finally, the Toastmaster Rajat, the theme on painting for a body movement may be a little suboptimal. Perhaps you could have chosen a more vigorous theme. So, apart from that, what do you like about your speech? I like the message you gave. Do your thing as per Nike. Very strong message here through painting. You had 3 distinct stories to support, and all of them humorous. You can give a little more detail here. And I loved your humorous tone throughout, especially when you were talking to your teacher. Now, before we move to the improvement section, many people use a transition line here to indicate to the speaker, and if it's a contest, to the judges, that I am now going to talk about improvements. It is a good idea if you can think up a thematic transition line related to how you started, rather than just saying that every speech has some improvement points. Like in this case, one can say, the best of paintings need some touch-up. I've written there that connecting phrase there. Now, in your particular speech, I felt that the opening, which was about pots and pans sitting on a table, was a bit long before you actually launched into the subject of painting. If it could have been a little shorter, I would have connected better that it was about painting. Secondly, I am sure that there would have been a lot of scope of audience interaction here. Are there any artists in the audience? That would have connected more. In fact, if you had asked me, I would have probably replied yes, because I do paint a little. And thirdly, your stories were pretty continuous. A little bit of pause would have definitely given us a chance to absorb your learnings in each story. In conclusion, that line is important. In conclusion, speaker knows you're concluding, judges know you're concluding. In conclusion, your project was adequately met. There was a strong message. There were 3 stories. There was a humorous tone. If only you could have shortened the opening, done some audience interaction, paused between stories, I am sure you'd paint the town red. That is how an evaluation can be read out, arranged and read. Now, just give me a sec to take a sip of water. Thank you. This is a similar example on the high performance leadership project. I will not read out like you did, but as you can make out, the project portion has got its own comments, and that is covered before we get on to the general speech. Now, your paper is now ready, right? You are now about to have been invited by the GE to deliver your evaluation. How many of you know this particular scene? You see the serial? This is Master Chef.
Master Chef.
Master Chef, that is Judge George, very famous judge, and is about to taste somebody's dish and give a feedback. And look at that poor fellow. And all our speakers, let me assure you, they don't sit like this, they don't stand like this, but this is what they are feeling inside. Oh, I hope it goes well. I hope he doesn't take my pants off. So, what are we going to talk about next? The acceptance, the delivery, the acceptance. The bouquet is to be delivered. And ladies and gentlemen, your whole effort at analyzing, finding what is important to be told, writing it down is useless if what you're telling is not being accepted by the speaker. If he puts up a wall after your first sentence, it is no use speaking the rest of the sentences. The evaluation has failed its purpose. Therefore, what do we have to do to make the speaker accept? We have to use technique, as the judges say, technique. So let me share with you the technique of speaking so that there is acceptance. Firstly, now let me spend a little 1 minute time on each of these points because they're important. There are two ways of delivering the evaluation. You can address yourself to the speaker and say, Mr. So-and-so, what I liked about your speech was this. Mr. So-and-so, if you had done this instead of this, maybe it would have come out better. The other way is to talk to the audience and say, we heard Mr. So-and-so do this, which was a good thing. If only Mr. So-and-so had done this, it would have come out better. Which do you think is more acceptable to the speaker? I feel if I am listening to an evaluator, if he's speaking to me, it is more acceptable. Now there is a technical issue here which some people face. When you're on a computer, it doesn't matter. When you look at the camera, you're looking at the speaker as well as the audience. However, when you're on stage and you have to also talk to the audience, how do you manage this? I manage this by starting the sentence with the speaker and then swiveling to the audience so that the speaker feels that he's being spoken to and the audience also gets eye contact. Now, this is a skill. When you're starting evaluation, these skills may not be readily available. It comes through a bit of practice and awareness. Speaking to the speaker is an important skill for speaker acceptance. Second, very important for acceptance, express as a personal opinion. We should always say that I feel that this could have been done this way, instead of saying the audience feels. Now, who the hell are you to tell what the audience feels? I at the most can talk about myself and the speaker would be willing to accept a personal opinion. Third, if you're suggesting an improvement, please do it sympathetically. We don't say, what sort of stage movement was that? It could have been done much better. Let's be sympathetic. Stage movement, what you did, yes, you did this, but perhaps it could have been done better this way. It should be sympathetic. Fourth, now this is a very, very funny warning that I'm giving here. Keep examples brief. Now, I have heard so many evaluations where when we are asked to connect with the point we are making with this speech, like if you're saying there was a good humor in your speech, for example, and we read out the whole joke again, 6-7 sentences of it. Not required. Why are we referring to the example is for the audience and the speaker to connect to what we are saying. If we just say, I really liked your joke about the old man and the bull, isn't that enough? We don't have to speak so much, waste our own time, waste the audience's time and they're waiting for us to stop talking. Let's keep the examples brief, whether it's the liking example or the improvement example. Fifth, let's evaluate the speech and not the speaker. Now, this is a very fine point. It comes across through the way we are speaking. Like there is a difference. If we say, today, you were very nervous. Compare that to saying, today, your speech was delivered in a very nervous manner. The second one means what? The second one means that normally you're not like this, today you are like that. Now that is a much more acceptable way for the speaker to listen to that point. Sixth, don't show off speaking skills, definitely not in a club evaluation. Here the purpose of the evaluation is to speak with reason and to motivate. We are not here to listen to our own good language, our own histrionics, our own gestures, our own pacing on the stage, not required. We can tone down our own speaking skills. Even if we talk about a contest, there are no points for it, although it may create some differentiation in case two people are very close. But in a club, please don't get into histrionics of speaking. Be reasonable, be calm, be collected, and be positive. Be encouraging. That's the overall tone of the evaluation, has to be encouraging. So throughout all the points mentioned are at reducing the ego of the evaluator. We speak either from the same platform as the speaker, as a friend, and then only it becomes acceptable to the speaker. And if you have done this well, more and more our points will be registered by the speaker, and he will come back and say, okay, what a good evaluation he gave. We'll come to the last point here, which is how to manage this time within 3.25 minutes. Now, this is my own method, and I'll tell you the logic. You can make your own. Now, in an evaluation, when we're doing in a club, I suggest you keep an opening for around 20 seconds. It's enough to finish those 2 sentences of introduction. Devote around 40-45 seconds to exclusively for that project. You need not talk in a very great detail here. It is more as a checklist that this thing you're supposed to have done, you have done, you have not done. Maybe you could have done better this way. For your likes, another 40 seconds, 2 to 3, depending on whether the project part you have finished in 40 seconds or you took 1 minute. You have to cut down to 2 here. Improvements, 1 minute, 20 seconds. Let me tell you why. In a lot of evaluations, you'll find the ratio is perhaps different. The way the evaluator is saying, he spends 1 minute, 20 seconds on the like, 40 seconds on improvement because he's run out of time. You are doing a great disservice to the speaker. The speaker knows what are the points that he's done well. Even if he doesn't, he will say, okay, good, and put it at the back of his mind. He really is interested in your improvement points and in your demonstration. Demonstration takes time, my friends. Showing how it is to be done takes time, and we have to provide the time. Now, as a thumb rule, if you have got 3 points of evaluation to be given, if you find that green has not yet appeared when you're starting on your improvements, perhaps you're in sync, in time. By the time you finish your first improvement point, green should come on, as you can make out from that block. Green comes on somewhere down the line. So you can make your judgment from here whether you can fit in only 2 points or 3 points. If green has come on, only 2. If green has not come on, you can try for 3. And finally, the closing, friends, can be done inside the red. It's possible. You need a little practice to go through the bullet points like an express train. You don't really have to spend a dilly-dally there. You say, what I liked about your speech was this. You could have improved this. And if you had done this, you'd be great. 25 seconds. Don't get nervous. Keep cool and finish. So the 2 takeaways that I want you to remember from this is, 1, please provide much more time for improvements and demonstration, and it is possible to summarize in the closing. Now, just as a matter of interest, let me share with you what I use in contests as the same time scale. Obviously, the project is not there. So it is possible to devote more time to the likes and to the improvements. You can be a little more expansive with your explanation. You can definitely put 3 likes and 3 improvements, if not 4. But I still suggest you don't go for more than 3 improvements because the demonstrations take time. I am sure if you are efficient with your words, this is a comfortable time, even in contest, to fit in all that you want to say. So that is my time chart for evaluating. Sticking to this time chart actually needs practice. If you are doing practice for contests, definitely you should do this as well. Even if you're not, even if you're a club evaluator, still try this. Listen to a speech on the YouTube, note your own points, do a demo run, and see with a phone timer by your side whether you're able to stick to these. You will find it needs a lot of courage to cut down on the points you like, to restrict that to a small time, because you're speaking nice things, but be ruthless, cut that down, provide more time for the recommendations. Friends, let me just recap that we have covered the evaluators challenge. Note all that is relevant. The check sheet. Choose only what is important. Those 3 rules. Deliver in a positive and acceptable manner. The club sandwich and the points, the technique that I spoke about. And do it in 3.25 minutes by sticking to the time guidelines that I suggested. Overall, we have covered how to state the criteria, how to listen to the speech, how to give the evaluation feedback, and if at the end of it all, if you have developed a little more the heart of an analyst and the soul of a friend, I'd consider my job today well done. Thank you. That's all from my side. Now, if you have any questions, perhaps we can handle some.